Hello, my name is Bob O'Neill. I'm the Executive Director of the International City County Management Association, and it's my great pleasure to welcome today Peter Block. Thanks for being here today.
Well, it's good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Peter's new book, Community, The Structure of Belonging, is an interesting sort of treatise for us, particularly those of us in local government. Peter, it's interesting, why this book and why now?
I started about 14 years ago getting involved with city managers, and I kind of got attracted to the non-technical side of that business and the civic engagement side. And I always felt city managers, I used to think school superintendents had the worst job in the world until I met you guys. And then I discovered city managers are worse, which makes it interesting. And I also think the focus on community is that we have reached the limit of getting things better by better technology, a better kind of business sense. I've been through a whole period of making the public arena more like a business. And I think we've let citizens off the hook. And so a lot of my work has been about a culture of accountability. And I think now even more so, we've turned citizens into consumers, and turned into entitled people. And so I just felt maybe it was time to raise that question and say, is there some other way of thinking about citizens?
So given what's going on, particularly in the world of the economy and all the things, why do you think community is so important?
Because it explains a lot. That if you take all the things we normally talk about, an unsafe street, a lousy environment, education that's not working the way with health care, everything we know is that none of those are going to get better without social fabric existing in a neighborhood, a city, a community. The idea that more programs, more money, better leadership, more expertise is going to create a different future. It's not, and the only thing that's going to create that is a deeper sense of connectedness, social fabric, community, citizens thinking this place is mine to create.
I mean, I assume that the technical aspects of what you're talking about, sort of the discussions you have in the book about problem solving, some of those are prerequisites but not sufficient given what we have as the issues in front of us.
I try to make a distinction between good management and good leadership.
Right.
So management creates order in the world. Nobody's going to argue against problem solving. But if you want a future distinct from the past, if you want tomorrow to be qualitatively different, problem solving can't get you there. Destination planning can't get you there. The world's too unpredictable. It's too unknowable. Right. And so you can't argue against problem solving, but you can postpone it, which is what I try to do.
Part of the, I think the interesting part of your discussion in the book is the description of our increasing fragmentation in communities, and then how difficult it is to get a sense of the whole.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you talk a little bit about what you see and how you think some of the things that you're talking about would make a difference?
The core of the book is that if you want to create an alternative future, you have to have a different conversation. And the conversation we're having now doesn't have the power or capacity to create a different future. You've got the business community. Each segment in the community thinks the others need to change. So the business has been banging on government for 20 years. Government's been banging on social services and business for 20 years. Social services think the business community is corrupt because they're gentrifying my rundown neighborhood. And health care is becoming the dominant. That's the new house on the hill. I think the largest buildings in town soon will be health care. They're going to probably be over 100% of our budget will go for health care. Nothing else is going to happen.
Right.
And so the quality of their interaction is so inward and narrow focused that who will care for the commons, who will care for the whole? And I have city managers and public servants as being the perfect spot to say we can convene and bring these together. If we don't bring them together, we're going to be in an economy of scarcity and fixed pie and all the assumptions that just aren't working very well.
The silos, if you had to describe for them sort of what's the upside in changing the nature of the conversation and dealing with the possibilities rather than the defense of sort of where I am, how would you begin to break those down if you're going down through the business community or groups who already have decided this set of solutions?
I would invite them into the room, ask them to leave their interests, because everybody's frustrated. So you're taking whatever issue, whatever element of suffering we have, and saying, well, let's talk about it as a community. How do we raise a child? I've loaded so much on the schools. It's amazing they can even open their doors.
Right.
I mean, so suppose we decided that, and so I think everybody has an interest in a larger possibility. And the nice thing is what we've got now in most of our centers, it's not working well. And I think people hold on to their interests when they're afraid and when they're anxious and they feel powerless. So maybe if we felt powerful, I could give today knowing I'll receive tomorrow.
What are the skills that elected officials and public officials need to develop that are different from our we're ready to solve the problem sort of skills?
Well, it's not just skill, it's mindset, it's
Right.
ways of thinking. Elected officials think citizens are customers, and we're in the customer service business, which is a disaster, because all we do is breed entitled citizens and entitled consumers. So when something goes wrong in my house or something goes wrong with a dog next door, I think I need a professional. Call the police, call my elected official. And so that's not a very useful or powerful. I think elected officials' real contribution is not to speak for citizens, but to confront citizens with their own freedom, to bring citizens together. The biggest power an elected official has is if they want to hold a meeting, people are going to show up. So we have a neighborhood summit every 6 months in Cincinnati. So the most active people in the community come together, a few hundred people come together, the elected officials come together, the department heads come together, the city manager. And then how do we spend that time? Well, we have our leaders standing up, telling us all the things they've done for us and how much better the city was now than 6 months ago, and then takes questions from the audience. Nothing gets produced. The officials, city managers end up defending themselves half the time, and they almost activate the most angry of citizens. So why not say maybe the purpose of a neighborhood summit is to get people in neighborhoods together with each other? And why not let the mayor or the city manager play a convening or facilitative role and said, look, we have a problem with public safety in District 1 in this neighborhood. I want you all to break into small groups and have a conversation about what citizens can do to keep their neighborhoods safe.
So how do you aggregate the conversation? So if you're in Cincinnati and you're trying to deal with the issues of community crime, it is about a place, it's about a neighborhood. But that may be replicated in, or at least similar circumstances in other neighborhoods. So how do you aggregate the conversation?
Well, a neighborhood can come together in small groups and people can talk about their role, their contribution. And then there are structures by which we can kind of focus and funnel that attention and say, well, so how many want to talk about youth? And let's get a group over there talking about how to deal with youth in the neighborhood with respect to safety. Let's talk about associations. How many think that if associations cooperated more? So at some point you can kind of collect people by issues that they care about and get them working on it with city managers, with elected officials. There's no, this isn't a mutinous process. But what you're doing is saying that building the social fabric is more important than coming up with a short-term fix.
We're in a society dominated by social networking technologies and those things that are creating sort of boundaryless conversations, but